Tenzin Dorjee Majona Gitadani Besinga Tangi Tendo, Tojalana me Bayanda was over Sanji Kumparamo Chikinji Toprashago, De Toprashavi Cheto, Ambechurum Jesenia, Becono Sanju Semchi, say Sembegon and Sembre.
Let us cultivate the altruistic motivation, seeking complete enlightenment for the sake of liberating infinite, kind, mother sentient beings. With that kind of altruistic motivation or bodhichitta motivation, that we should all participate in this teaching.
Tangaran Samalo, Ranta Yinj turned Denton Devi in it, Sanji Kumbaro with the Toya Keta. I
believe that all of us are seeking complete enlightenment or Buddhahood as our spiritual goal in order to benefit both self and others.
Zobe Sanji Jacomba Tobra Shabalata, Ane Sanju Simbrumbuka, Tommy Tobi Tower, that thing about the Angela Masheva Tab Mabaki, that thing about Sheguaris.
If complete enlightenment is the goal that we are seeking for the benefit of both self and others, then it is a must that we should cultivate bodhichitta or the altruistic mind of enlightenment and the wisdom gone beyond, or the wisdom realizing emptiness as it is. We need to integrate these two spiritual paths in order to reach complete enlightened state.
Tati ni nani ale tangarazo show rangawanam chini to that one sharing and any sanju serum booking when is Johnny. The years of Tony to Tawa Soeta, Lucy Tani or the Ning Dan Tangaranzo and Lucy Tambo Sanju Simran Jean Ranjuli Shabashe. Any Tony to be Tawa so and Lucy not Yahweh Harish.
There are two approaches to cultivating these two spiritual paths, bodhichitta and wisdom gone beyond. It is possible to cultivate the wisdom gone beyond, or the wisdom realizing emptiness first, and then cultivate bodhichitta or the conventional mind of enlightenment. But for ordinary, most of the ordinary people like ourselves, it is advised and recommended that we should cultivate bodhichitta, or the altruistic mind of enlightenment first, and then cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness later.
Tati yin chung san ta shanju ji ser mo che ma she pa rangi la ma she ba she gi thap de la ta ma ro ji kin dus ni yo ta nam ji ta ta ba phe ding zun zun du shin ani te ram ba gi ngi hu res ani ta yang ni ma re zeng ni sa ma to phe mi tu ngi na phen to chen bo yong res.
So what I just said is for most of us as beginners or ordinary practitioners, it is advised or recommended that we should cultivate bodhichitta first and then the wisdom gone beyond. And in terms of cultivating bodhichitta, there are two meditational techniques. And many of you who have been attending my teachings for a long time, you probably already know or remember these techniques. There could be some people who are able to come once in a while, and I'll try to, give an explanation that could also be useful to them as well.
Jumde menga ding goni jutan debishin ta ding goni ne shangi semjong su ki ta da ta yin da gi nyam ge chi goni ne shangi semjong su ta tinde ji manda ji ni ye baris.
The two meditational techniques for cultivating bodhichitta, or the altruistic mind of enlightenment, are: one is popularly known as the 6 causes and 1 result meditation technique, and other is called equalizing and exchanging self for others. These are the two meditational practices that we could adopt to cultivate bodhichitta.
Hola, tati any ta jumde menga ding goni ani semjong su ta du shebe na ani ta jiba de shege na ani da je ta ma sheje to ban che ne jo shambong go ma she te ni ma she ne ani ta pa ba thome ni she man du shi jiba du shi ngos tan du shumares.
As for the origin of the 6 causes and 1 result meditational technique, it came from Shakyamuni Buddha, our historical teacher, to Maitreya, and from Maitreya to Asanga, and through those lineage masters.
Ta songja ta kari ina ale junde menga din ta tangbo te do chene tangyong gong go res singe tham chile ta sim hyobe tamyu chi gong go res.
Before we cultivate the 6 causes and 1 result, we need to cultivate a sense of equanimity, or balanced state of mind. It is also called even-mindedness. We need to cultivate a balanced state of mind in relation to sentient beings.
Ta rang ta nyam ju tikare da ta nyen ta pamasum do sine da nyen pamasum ngal ta namju do sin ngunzi che gares so te sumbuti do ngara su ta ngunzi che ni de la te ni ani chaba ta dang da mong ba se ta cha dang mong su de ni do sin che gares so cha te ali te ai nge te pha nyam ba chi ke chim bu cha gares.
So it is important to cultivate a balanced state of mind or attitude in relation to sentient beings. So what we are trying to balance out, if you ask, is that usually we have biased attitudes towards sentient beings as we categorize them into different types and see them as friends, enemies, and strangers. And as we categorize them into those three types, we also experience different emotions: attachment, anger, and ignorance in relation to them. So what we are really trying to balance out here is to have the same attitude, unbiased attitude towards friends, enemies, and strangers.
Ta drata nyeta pamasambote rang jila ani chabata dawata momba shewita yuri chagure shewi ani nyomobata shewi yu chagure yu tel megne ani nyomobata shewure.
Friends, enemies, and strangers are what we call the objects which give rise in our mind to attachment, anger, and ignorance, or obscured state of mind.
Kari insana kangaran chamal hakukuru was ranke any nyela chanita nyela meaning the chashiguris tagana yike rank dala meaning control down shiguris and if a messenger minita chabata down kaya beta momba marwashi you chaguris.
I think if we check with our own experiences, we can see that we experience attachment in relation to friends. We're attached to them. We're talking about deluded attachment in the footnote. In relation to enemies, we experience anger and hatred. In relation to strangers, we experience indifferent attitude, which is more part of ignorance, because basically we don't care what happens to them. And as you can see, we experience these different emotional states relating to friends, enemies, and strangers.
Chabata down the Mombashi Yul, the Lunosha Kibatuya, any Java said Kibal Puni, any Chabaki Chetam, any Angela Mipi, any Chadam Shiagata, Chadam law, Pa got Hoya, got Hoyagata, Sunday curious.
When we make a mandala offering or offering of universe, we visualize the best of everything that is available in the universe and offer them to the objects of refuge and sublime beings. But we also offer objects of our attachment, anger, and indifferent attitude to the sublime beings. And by way of detaching ourselves from these objects, we make an earnest supplication to the objects of refuge to bless us and inspire us so that we are able to get rid of attachment, anger, and ignorance from within our minds, so that we're able to subdue these negative attitudes inside us and eliminate them for good.
That Dani Pamasumbuti, Nyam Simhoya, Jangdisani, I Gomjitanta, Kandisha Ani rank any near Dasheva, Dani Sheval, that Daniel letter, 아니 도신 다 망보신 도시 저와 진이 용받 상방거스这满一杯小忙不了도신 당을小장매바 랑요小장매베 랑도 장매바 랑 급수 아니 생기단 요랑 다시 다니다 아마 셰만이 다 장매바 차고요 그래서
So how can we equalize our attitude towards friends and enemies and strangers, if you ask? The way we do that in our meditation is, trying to take into account the changing relationships we have had with all sentient beings. Of course, we are not limiting to just this lifetime. We should be able to think over, many lifetimes, and as a matter of fact, we have taken countless rebirths in cyclic existence. So over many, many lifetimes, we have established different relationships with sentient beings. In one lifetime, those who were our friends, they become enemies in another lifetime. Those who were enemies in one lifetime, in another lifetime, they become our best friends. So the relationships that we have formed with sentient beings are not fixed and static. They are in the state of flux. They have been undergone changes. So when we think about that, how friends become enemies, enemies become friends, and strangers for that matter, then we are able to, treat them, see them equally, and have the same attitudes, to all of them.
That in the end, the nani and that, rang any more reta, Shiva Manchu like that, Manchu, non learning, near rang near down. And especially when we think within that framework that I just presented, how over many, many lifetimes we have these changing relationships with sentient beings as friends and enemies and strangers. Relatively speaking, sentient beings have become our friends and have been strangers to us many more times than they have been our enemies. And there have been, only relatively fewer times when sentient beings have been our enemies, but most of the time they have either been strangers to us or they have been our friends. Ranga any talk when it only could die, you somebody that could done the West. You need to take me at that and limit. Then there are in the thing you might stem Mawata, Ranga Pro Chaguare, then delay that Mawata, the Pamesinki channel was.
So if we look at our life here and now, and our life experiences, I think that will be very indicative of what I'm talking about. How many enemies do we really have? The ones we really call my enemies. Maybe one, two, maybe not at all. But how many friends do we have? And most of the people and beings are, strangers in the sense that neither our friends nor our enemies. And that's what we experience in this life. There are only few who we may call them or see them as our enemies, but many are our friends, and most of them are strangers.
Never done Mandus, never message, Daniel never message.
So as we do that kind of meditation, the most important point we have to remember is trying to understand that there is no certainty, in our relationships with sentient beings. Friends become enemies, enemies become friends, and so on. Nothing is fixed and static in this case. And when sentient beings have become our friends, they have been equally nice and kind to us. When they have become our enemies, they have been equally rude and, nasty to us. So they have all been same in both good and bad ways, if you want. So they're all equal in those respects. So let's think about, we try to go back into life, if you will, say the day we were born from the womb of our mothers. Well, at that moment, probably we didn't have either friends or enemies, because relationships have really been formed per se that we really perceive as friends or enemies, if you will. And then what happens is, relationships are cultivated and established and built with each other. So there is that kind of interdependence, relativity, it comes into play.
And the Toronto and Lamberton and Lobby in Nandola Channel Tap Pajisumari. Nay, Daniel and Eva Maverton, and the Petakin and the Lucy or Taina Tatunzo, the Kiagua came into Ali Toronto law and Hagores.
So I would advise you to read or go back to your lumbering treatises, such as Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, and detailed explanations about these things are given with good examples. So I don't need to go into details here.
That's on that gum this and that gum jagorete. At the penna on a Dani Pamasumata, Tanyon Congress, Tanyon Gomsinger, Tanyon Secaresana, that Jata Nieta. Attended my Kanga and the Kanga Perala, Pento Chamber tap Ning the Higi and Gum Yawaris.
So, what I'm talking about is something we should really meditate on. It's not so much to be talked about or just to kind of understand, but we, in our meditative state, consider the fact that our relationships with sentient beings are not something fixed and static. As a matter of fact, they have been changing over many lifetimes. And so we try to see, that all sentient beings have equally been our friends. And because, if we are able to consider and see all beings as our friends, there are a lot of benefits which arise from this state of mind or perception.
Nearing Chadang into Jago. That never down, only that never ne Chabata, only Dala Damata, to that drive, only Chadang the drive, only Lord Tag Samaritated, the Niger and Diamond Secretaries.
Tangyam, sense of equanimity, balanced state of mind, even mindedness, all different translations talking about the same thing, is a state of mind which is free of attachment and hatred. And so when we cultivate a sense of equanimity or balanced state of mind, we need to let go. The Tibetan term tang means to go, let go attachment and hatred and anger and all those things. And Nyomba means equalize everybody. We start to see all of them as being our friends and develop the same attitude towards them. So as we are cultivating balanced attitude through meditation, we may feel this way, that I'm able to do this with almost everybody, except for this person or this group of people or beings, well, there is a problem now. There's nobody to be excluded. If we somehow in our meditation think that, yeah, I'm fine with most of the people or beings, but not with this particular XYZ, well, that, exclusionary attitude is an obstacle in cultivating sense of equanimity. Yeah, if we look deeply, what we can really come to understand is this, that all the things, unwanted things that we experience in life are the results of negative karmic actions that we create and accumulate out of attachment to friends or those we see as near and dear to ourselves, and out of hatred and anger towards those we see as enemies. And so all the unwanted things that we experience in our lives are related to our own negative actions, which are related to our negative states of mind. So it's important for us to consider the sense of equanimity in our everyday life and try to see that all beings are equally kind to us, like this one person who we remember as being very caring and kind to us. So if we develop that kind of a recognition and attitudes towards them, then of course we are not going to do anything that hurts anybody. The fact of the matter is, if we somehow think of hurting someone, then that really clearly indicates that we have not developed sense of equanimity or balanced state of minds to all sentient beings. So cultivating sense of equanimity or balanced state of mind is like preparing the ground, preparing our mind for, cultivating bodhichitta or the altruistic mind of enlightenment. One who cultivates sense of equanimity cannot show frowning face, angry face to those as they see what they consider as enemies, and show smiling face to those that they consider as friends. Someone who is cultivating sense of equanimity or balanced state of mind cannot show two faces to different people.
Oh, yeah. I think that's how it was. The mother's shit. Young Gassa tell Nanja the mother's shit.
So I think we can all easily relate to that, because we all know what does it mean to show different attitudes to different people. When we see people we like and friends, we show one attitude, verbally or non-verbally. When we see people we don't like or dislike, we show another attitude verbally or non-verbally. So we cannot do that, if we are to treat all beings as being equal and cultivate a sense of equanimity to them.
That the nigga and that Saint Tanje same yum tubaki shonsona, and a Saint Tanje machipate, my but the rank sound time elaborates.
So once we have succeeded in cultivating sense of equanimity towards all beings, then I think it becomes relatively easier to cultivate the recognition of all beings as having been our kind mothers.
Kari insana, Tanyong because run the Shivala Tang Mabaki Sampang. That means any Delani, Siyatangi Datani, Shemanyu, he never sometimes, and that round the Shivala Tanga Mabaki, when sometimes higher was.
Now the reason is that when we cultivate a sense of equanimity, we have already gone through these thought processes, if you will, that over many lifetimes, sentient beings have become our friends, become our enemies, become strangers to us, and these relationships have been changing over many lifetimes, and we have already considered, the possibility of, countless rebirths that we have been through already, and we have, had different relationships with different beings.
So that Tambo Delta, Vinde Manga doing a Tambo Data, Sinyataki Rang my impasse, that's not the Gomgoda.
So now, once we have prepared the mind, cultivating a sense of equanimity or balanced state of mind, then we begin with the first of the 6 courses to cultivate bodhichitta, and that is, recognizing all beings as having been our mothers.
And so that Sindilla, Chacharan's sick, the Haran Tambina, Sindilla and Making Matuya Marawas.
When we think only in terms of this lifetime, of course, we have only one mother.
Yena Rang Sheval Tanga Mapping do sometime in the Tani, and Mati Rani can show Samalok Mashi to the Shea Maris. Just a Taba Gilliers. Gilliers and they sing it up. Tangme, but that's singing a Tangme, but then Mavan, then I rang Sheval Tanga Maverick, Sonsa, and they will sing it Tangi, my be just kick some pound.
But when we think over many countless lifetimes, then sentient beings have become our mothers at different, times. It's not that the same mother has been becoming our mother for countless times. And in this lifetime, we have only one mom. So, but as we change our rebirth, we have a new mother for that rebirth. As we change our next rebirth, we have another mother. So it is in that sense, as we have taken countless rebirths already in samsara, so we have, had countless mothers.
Tayan Charan in this anger was. Pena, Pimit the Tangwa Pimish Maran shit. She bet to any Matan Shing Maris and Trisang the West.
Relating to this, do you, feel this way? That, well, does that mean that women always keep on reborn as a women and then giving birth, and the men always are reborn as a man, and then they, that's how things have been working out?
That is Nemaris. Any, Karsota, Jimmy, Choga Sheba, the Choga Jimmy Sheba, that Tamaris, that in years. Jimmy Tangwara, Jimmy, to make Lengu Amaris, Choga to any Chogi Lula and Eva Yamaris.
Well, again, here, the relationships have been changing. Women do not always be reborn as women and as mothers, and men do not reborn always as men and always as fathers. Women are reborn as, men are reborn as women, and so men become mothers in different lifetimes, and women become fathers in different lifetimes. So all these relationships have been changing over countless rebirths.
Meet in the Yinaya. And then that's subject to do that to Pena is very rate. Penam Businton, Businton, any condition around Mashi Younger, Samsung Dois.
Okay, now you might think that, that's maybe how the human, have been, going through, that in different lifetimes, that those who are men now, they could become women and mothers next life, and those who are mothers now, they could become fathers next life. Okay, I get it. But then, how can, the other sentient beings, such as the insects, could have become our mothers?
That one Businton, that one position, Siamara, some any meetings on that, Busing short Tamil langers and around some langers. Busitin so and you might any me any shiva coming longers. Could talk about this dog marisko.
Well, again, the insects, do not always be reborn as insects, or we as human beings do not always be reborn as human beings. We have, been reborn as insects many times. Insects have been born as humans many times before. So we should be able to sort of, break that kind of a barrier in our mind as if that whatever form we have now, we just keep on recycling or repeating it over many lifetimes. Humans always reborn as humans, insects as insects, women as women, men as women. No. All these things change, in many shapes and forms and lives over many lifetimes. Now, what about the beings in the hells? Do you think that they always get stuck there? They never can get out from the hells? Well, again, the hell beings, do not live forever in the hells. That's not their permanent address. And so whenever that karma that precipitated their rebirth in the hells comes to an end, is exhausted, then they could be out of those hells. As a matter of fact, we have been into the hells many times before. Now we are out, at least this time. And so we should understand that beings in the different states of samsara, they can move from one state to another state.
Nyawala Shevata, Nyawaba Shevata, and they take you that thing called later one so that later Jodis and Karina take Gegu, show the game.
And also the celestial beings or the divine beings or the little g gods, once their karma to be gods exhausts, they could be reborn in the hells if that's the karma get ripened. And those who are in the hells, when their karmas get exhausted, they could be, experience another karma and be reborn as little g gods or the divine beings. And so all these things, could change, and they do change. That's what we need to, understand. So as we try to cultivate the recognition of all beings as having been our mothers, we need to consider all those different avenues and different factors. So as we cultivate such recognition, and then we reach a point where, as we see any particular sentient being, let's say even a small insect, we have the feeling that this has been my mother before, and we respect the insect for that. And then that means we're starting to develop the experience in our mind through such meditation. So if we reach a point through our meditation training of the mind that as soon as we see any sentient being, we have the same feeling and recognition of that being as our mother, just as we have the same feeling of seeing our mother of this lifetime, that means we are really developing deep experience here. And of course, with that kind of a recognition and respect, we are not going to hurt anyone. Let alone cultivating bodhichitta, which is the outcome or the result of cultivating the 6 courses, which began with the recognition of all beings as having been our mothers. But even as we take this step number 1, so to speak, we are cultivating this recognition of all beings as having been our mothers. Once we really experience it in the mind, that we recognize every sentient being as our mother, just as we recognize the mother of this lifetime, even that much recognition is so beneficial in that we stop harming any sentient beings. Of course, if we have the real bodhichitta, that is just beyond, the thoughts and description of these benefits. But even with the step number 1, if you really experience it, you can see how much benefit it brings to us and to the humanity or to the universe.
So that ring any Shanju Simjonga, any Tambo, any Tanyon Gomba Tang, any Dunganani, Mahe Gomba in those stand the hubris, that and do sing it in my have gone that gets a maris. Sanji Kamde in the Pekana Mamban.
Of course, this morning so far I kind of focused on and explained a little bit, the need and how to cultivate, sense of equanimity or balanced state of mind, and how to cultivate the recognition of all beings as having been our mothers. And of course, there are more steps or the courses that we need to cultivate to experience bodhichitta. And of course, there are more to this, as we look in the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha.
Sanjay Kamdin de Gata, do some Geshes Tamji, the Lakwe Til Dusan, the Devan Naik, Ziliares.
But I do want to share one really more important point here. That is, Shakyamuni Buddha, or an enlightened being, Buddha, sees everything that exists, we call phenomena, directly as if the things are in the palm of their hands.
Sonsa Sanjay Kamdin de Narancho, any Shewe Yanta the Chan Zilia Maris. Tambo Kani Yomi to Tanya, Karinsa Kota Maveris.
So Buddha had such an omniscient mind of wisdom that perceives everything that exists, directly as if they are on the palm of his hand. Even with that omniscient wisdom, he did not see the beginning of our rebirth.
I think Machia Karis call Tam Maventa, call Hezal Masi in Sante, Machin Paresta.
Buddha did not see the beginning of our rebirth. Now that does not mean that Buddha's omniscient mind is somehow, limited in some sense. It is just because there is no beginning to our rebirth.
Sanjay Tamji, Sanjay Majeta call, Sanjay Tam, Sanjay call a time meter, those in Javas Yaris, just Zid Yaris Alitason.
So the point I'm trying to make here is Buddha has analyzed deeply everything that exists, and with his omniscient mind, he did not see beginning to our rebirth. So that's how we say our life is without beginning. There is no beginning to rebirth. Whereas when Buddha considered, is there an end to the life in samsara? What is the possibility of beings getting out of samsara and attaining nirvana, liberation, and attaining enlightenment? When he analyzed that way, so he saw the end.
That Kari is na Kowe Yanta Maziri, Shinta Kari is na later Yomoni with the Kadu saving a quality tower, just a tea, so get Tangil, sure remember your arrest.
So the important point I'm trying to make here is that Buddha's omniscient wisdom has not seen beginning to our life in samsara or cyclic existence. That's why we often talk about beginninglessness in samsara or life without beginning in samsara. But when he analyzed if there is an end to our life in samsara or cyclic existence, Buddha has seen the end. He's seen that whenever we are able to get rid of delusions or deluded states of mind and contaminated karmic actions, then we are able to put an end to our life in samsara. So that is the end of life in samsara, and we can get out.
No. That is Taran Toshi. Ani rimbe ta shanju senjon te kale dose ta tikni rimbe kare. Those ma kale ni huis.
So I will stop there for today and return to our wonderful text called a Miscellaneous Collection of Kadampa Geshes Advices. What I really plan to do is, I started off with the 6 courses for cultivating bodhichitta, and so I will continue this part of the teaching, if you will, every Sunday before we catch up, where we live in the text. Okay, lots of mayas, metaba comba, chamni de comba, tameni comba, tameni sunday working. Kata sungwe katui.
That dameni gondis ali tambu dame comba, takasangi hubing bus. Dameni gaja letara meberis, gaja letara yamari. Dameni but curry todisani, tiktok in a tick, then shuchi, Kasetai, so I gained shame agata. Name Junsi temperature don't 2 years at this one.
So several weeks ago we started off with Geshe Tsultim response to a question which involves 3 key points and 9 subsidiary points, or each of these can be regarded as practices. So we could say 3 key practices and 9 subsidiary or supporting practices. So the key number 1 is mind training, or the training of the mind. There are many ways to do that, but Geshe Tsultim talks about 3, and they are meditating on impermanence, mitaba komba, meditating on love and compassion, chamni komba, and meditating on 2 types of selflessness or 2 selflessnesses, dangmeni komba. And so last week we talked a little bit about meditating on the selflessnesses. I explained to you that there are 2 types of selflessness: selflessness of a person and selflessness of phenomena. Now it's really important for us to understand and remember that these 2 types of selflessness do not differ from each other in terms of coarseness and subtlety. In other words, qualitatively, they are just the same. It's not like one of the selflessness is more subtle or subtle than the other. They are just the same. So which means if we realized one of the 2 selflessnesses, by the power of that realization or understanding, as we shift our focus onto phenomena or another phenomenon, we are able to understand the selflessness of the other phenomena, because qualitatively the 2 selflessnesses are just the same. And also I said that in terms of the object of negation, gaksha is a very instrumental word, gaksha, that which is being refuted or negated, in order to establish the 2 selflessnesses. It's just the same. The object of negation is again the same.
Well, that is a thing between Sediane, the same which I was showing you now, Sondoa. Takwing Nola Maripang, the women's minds. Takwing over the Carres and Gaja ship. Gaja Dindusinandra, Gaja Rangiji Trubasinandra, Rangini Trubasinandra, that thing to say. Gaja Novel, Mahiperseta. Being women's minds. Yet the any yet that they thinkers any Gaja Rangiji Truba Rangijum Dember Truba Mahina, a tea think Tony Toma Rescana.
So the object of negation or refutation is just the same for 2 selflessnesses, and the 2 selflessnesses are qualitatively just the same. Great Bodhisattva Mahasattva Shantideva states in his Guide to Bodhisattva's Way of Life, or Bodhisattva Child Avatar, Chunjuk in Tibetan, as Geshe quoted the stanza from his memory, Shantideva says, literally translating, if we do not touch that which is imputed, we cannot understand the absence of that. Okay, now the commentary given on these lines is that if we do not understand first, what is being negated or refuted, and that is true existence, inherent existence, objective existence. Now we are using all these terminologies to mean the same thing. So what is being refuted is true existence, or inherent existence, or objective existence, meaning something that exists from its own side. We will not be able to understand, the emptiness of true existence, emptiness of inherent existence, emptiness of objective existence. Because without understanding what is being refuted, we cannot understand, the absence of that negation, which is the emptiness.
Me ta kuma jingo singu kuma ji singu huyena zu zungu huyena to zunga shebala kuma de ta kande ji me de hako go ko korang ge kharing mendo ta ta ne ji tende ge korang ge ta kuma ngo ma shebala kuma sin tu ya mare je je de na yi ge ga je de ngo ma si pa ti tenge ani da me to ma res pe se wondo wa.
So the example that we could give here is, if we are to catch a thief, we should have some information on who the thief is. We probably have a description of the thief, what kind of a person he or she is, what's the size, what's the skin color, whatever. All this information needed to be able to recognize who the thief is. So without that information on the thief, we cannot go and catch a thief, can we? In the same way, we got to have information on what is being negated or refuted, called the object of negation or the object of refutation. So once we have that complete information, on it, then we have to find out whether, that object of negation does exist or not. Do things exist truly, or do they exist inherently?
That pen that notion that Japan do shaven, yeah. Pena that's and I mean do the alley the yipum the yin that yin that you don't change, that yipum bad that you shake when yipum back the thingers. And then don't you talk about Cheval that yipum bad in suited that comes up and dog some consumer dog some child.
So as I said earlier, we could talk about the selflessness on the basis of a person. That would be the selflessness of a person. Or selflessness could be understood on the basis of a phenomenon. And that would be the selflessness of phenomena. And let's use, a vase as an example, Pumbaa, or a pot. And we could, talk about three modes of apprehension of a vase or a pot. In other words, a vase could be perceived in three different ways.
Junta loha shope ta dendru rangi jitoban zimbeta zimbeta dendig anita junta junte wanke and zigeta bomba dendu dising ta tezam dende mayinge ta ngaranso na yita pe junta loha shochan manyumege ta ndusini tonye ma tobashe ane junta la loha ma shobashe ni ani bomba dun zin bomba rangawachi That those are Pambaranga Chinsingo.
So we can talk about how three people, if you will, can look at the same vase or a vase and have three different modes of apprehension or perception. Let's consider someone who has realized the selflessness of a vase or the emptiness of a vase. This person perceives the vase as nothing more than a mere label that is, imputed by terms and concepts onto the basis of imputation. So the vase is nothing but a mere label. That's how he or she perceives the vase to exist. That's the one mode of apprehension of a vase. Now the second person, who has not yet realized the emptiness or the selflessness of a vase, but who has studied some, tenets or the philosophy pertaining to the vase. And if he or she, is educated in a philosophy that propounds that vase is truly existent, then he or she will perceive the vase as truly existent. This is a very different perception of the vase, how it exists. Now, most of us, who have, not yet realized the emptiness of a vase, and who have not been really, grounded in the philosophies or the philosophical, thoughts about the vase, we might perceive the vase as something that exists independently. Just
that any Zinzutilla Rangi Madubi Chabashin, that Tambuke, Rangi Madubi Chabas Chini Pumban Zinzuki. Ah, the in Kaya, Tibet Tanga, Rangi Jumadu Kayanke, and then one the Majik in Zinzuki. That Tama the Gani Rangi Trube, one the Shintan Zinzundri Maraki Suming was.
So what I just explained is that there are three different modes of apprehension of a vase, perception of a vase. The first person who has realized the emptiness of vase sees the vase as being characterized by emptiness of true existence or inherent existence. Now the second person who has not yet realized the emptiness of a vase, but who is grounded in a philosophy that somehow presents a vase as truly existent, this person sees the vase as being characterized by true existence. Now the third person who has neither realized the emptiness of a vase nor grounded in that same philosophy might perceive the vase as being characterized by, some independent entityness.
That is and then there is Tan Naran so Nazul Javina, Tan Narangi Chuba, Rangi Madubi Chabas in the Nan Zikita, Ane Rangi Trubi Chabas in Zikita, Tini Kando and Chaban Majepe, Shetan Nan Zikita, not those into San Tamina, Kansala San Tamina, Nan Ziking, that Sum was.
Now, what I've just explained, these three different modes of apprehension of a vase could also be related to how self or a person is perceived in three different ways as well. Now, we are talking about the self of a person, ourselves. When as often we claim I or the self, how does it exist? It could be perceived in three different ways. It could be perceived as being characterized by emptiness of true existence or inherent existence. It could be perceived as being characterized by true existence. It could be perceived as being characterized by neither.
No, so that the then the kick to the Nan do song the wa. Kick to the Nan Ze Tang Ha, any me happy demo. That the legend is song.
No.
That is enough. And that magician, that mutual thinking curve.
No.
Call Juma Liu Xing Talang the Trini, Tata Lambochig, now what you are the Hamba de Mediata?
No.
Go Vati,
Really.
Gish Altasun.
In the context of establishing emptiness or selflessness through valid reasonings, such as whether or not self exists as being identical with one with aggregates, or does it exist as being distinctively different from the aggregates? So there are many valid reasonings like that. We call Chik-Dudagi Tenzi. And there's another example given of how self could be perceived differently by different people. And the example there given is like, when you go to a magic show, a magician who is playing his tricks. So a magician uses pebbles and twigs, to create elephants and horses. Now, from the perception of the magician himself, yes, he does see horses and elephants, but he does not grasp at them as being real horses and elephants, because he knows he created them. That's his magic. But he does, see, or at least to his perception, there is an appearance of horse and elephant.
Public consultants of that in Luciani, he's a counter in Luciani. Nangu ko Totasam, Tobe Tabasa, Nangu Mato, Tatele Rangi to Banzi Bishamba that the Mabet. And now I was a Kamba.
So just as a magician sees elephants and horses that he has created, but he does not believe them to be real horses and elephants, he does not grasp at them as being real horses and elephants. In the same way, transcendental beings or the Aryas, meaning those who have gained direct insight into emptiness, they perceive phenomena as being empty of true existence, but the phenomena could still appear to them as truly existent. So just like the magician, so there could be an appearance of true existence of phenomena to their perceptions, but they do not believe that phenomena truly exist. They perceive, as a matter of fact, phenomena are empty of true existence.
Demo tangi tunzulta, Nazi make head savvy, Demo Tunzula, now the Cabaniga Chadu.
Now, going back to the example, that those who are at the magic show means who have been there from the start of the magic, and the magician has played his tricks, and as we say, his the whatever tricks or the incantation or the mantras he used to play the trick. So once your perceptions have been influenced by his mantra recitation, so everybody at the show, spectators, they not only perceive horses and elephants, but they do believe these are real horses and elephants. So they have both the perception, both the appearance of horses and elephants, as well as believing or grasping at them as being real horses and elephants.
Tony Matovi Kanza, Tanzulani, Kijatan, those Tony Ranta, Tangat, Senam, any using Nandisani, Demba Nanki, Hamba in Wedding.
So just like the spectators at the magic show, whose perceptions have been influenced by the magicians and tricks and the mantras, they perceive horses and elephants, they believe these are real horses and elephants. In the same way, that those of us ordinary people and sentient beings, not only that phenomena appear to our perceptions as truly existent or inherently existent, but we also believe that phenomena exist truly. They are truly existent. So we have both the appearance of true existence and grasping at true existence of phenomena.
Ming Malepe Kansa Tanzula, Talang Now is a marking to be now you may can by.
And now there are the third type of people, we can talk about who are not at the magic show. So they're not part of the magic show. Now these people, neither have the appearance of horses and elephants, nor have the grasping at, as horses and elephants, because they are free of that whole, the fabrication and influence.
And that how because don't also talk because
so just like them, those who are in the deep meditative state, we call meditative equipoise on emptiness. In this meditative state, they are non-conceptually perceiving emptiness as it is. It is a non-dual experience of emptiness. Being in this meditative state, neither do the phenomena appear to their mind as truly existent, nor do they believe or grasp at phenomena as being truly existent. So basically, these areas of the transcendental beings in the deep meditative state, they have neither the appearance of true existence nor grasping at true existence.
Kita kasing huwi mas tongban ji tuen toy kita khawres me khaji san tongyi se de hira le lawre tak aw ta sangji sem de khad ma de ye tongban ye toy le law ki ban do singi den do nga tes game shok do tel.
So I think given you enough for today to think about and I think, as you can see, it's really important for us to be able to, relate to those examples and many different valid reasonings in order to be able to understand what emptiness is. It's not a really easy thing to understand, and that's what I said last time too. And I'm trying to emphasize this point because I do come across some people who kind of tell me that, cultivating bodhichitta is really difficult, but understanding emptiness is not that. And that give a kick out of me, And so they're missing the point. Emptiness is not easy to understand, and I hope you got that sense of that. And it really requires a lot of analysis and thinking through clearly, using valid reasonings and using many great examples, to be able to understand what it is.
Don't you to lay how the singing to any at that pache can't say came ever, gain yellow meshiva gonding medicine.
So, when people come across to me say that it's easy to understand emptiness, then I started to kind of suspect that maybe, what they are really meditating on is in the state of annihilation or nihilism. So probably they are just kind of thinking nothing exists at all.
Then it's answered German. That Tomba you say at the window to me, dear much sooner. Dobrkaki, Matona, ane, Dobrkaris. Matona any call it Tomaris, there is Zini, that Toman you tend to pay Jachimbo, say what you can now.
So we must not make the same mistake. We cannot, how should I say, annihilate everything that exists, and then as if in that state of like nothingness, we have seen emptiness. So emptiness is not the negation of everything that exists. And as Rinpoche or Majesty Lama Tsongkhapa has stated, that it's really difficult to realize emptiness, but nonetheless we have to make efforts to realize it, because otherwise, if we don't realize emptiness, there is no way out of samsara. To be free from samsara, however difficult it is, we need to make efforts to realize emptiness. And for that reason, Lama Tsongkhapa has authored many profound works explaining, explicating what emptiness is.
That didn't Tenzin.
Okay, come to show.
Thank you can do Jarmuke, Kusi Captain. The Tandan didn't do.
And again, I'll let issue and issue the come to show that working.
Correct.
Understand, I come to the sugar.
Very
Okay, I think Shila has some announcements, and I have some prayer requests here. Prayers have been requested for Richard McGarry and Virginia Leiden, who have passed away, and for Mary Stefkiewicz. I think she was, very ill. So prayers have been requested for all of them. And then an announcement I have also is a re-announcement, as a matter of fact, is December 4th, Monday, Geshe will be giving refuge vows or precepts at 7:30 at TDL. So there will be no meditation on that evening. No.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Badik.
That and then that. Today, you know, Kusha and Captain, you end those in a Kangan language repeat that. Samalok. Language restriction attention issues.
So as I announced last time too, that in India the Tibetan communities and the monasteries and everybody is doing prayers for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and I thought it would be nice if we could participate in that. So I have an announcement with regard to that.
That the goddess read the so the hearing is not the hearing of Tango in a touch round of hearing of Tugumara was in a Tiatanga, the Paranga, the Parasanga, the body source, the temple in not hearing of Tamba the Chayamaris.
So one of the prayers that has been asked to be done for His Holiness long life is the Heart Sutra. And I know that probably most of you, don't know the Heart Sutra, that whole prayer. So, but you could meditate on emptiness and recite the Heart Sutra mantra, which is Tatyata Gade Gade Para Gade Para Sam Gade Bodhi Swaha. So you can recite that mantra.
Tati Tolane, Jormuchigata, Senga de Dushin and Insurance Tamal in the figure, any Senga terms.
And then we are also going to give you, I think there must be handouts, as I understand it, mantra, the name mantra of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So please try to recite his name mantra.
That the anything you learn, then Guru Rumbuchek, Tengare. That's a day carrying some duck came with Chagrin also, Pushita. Someone that case of Guru Rumbuchek Sengatangus.
And then the another mantra is the name mantra of Acharya Padmasambhava, who is also known as Guru Rinpoche. And so that mantra also need to be recited. So we are giving you handouts of these mantras, and so I would advise you to, at home, if you could find time, and whenever you find time, to recite these mantras, that would be very wonderful.
Ale, that someone who theatre and getting the parang the parasanga the body so singer was.
Again, the theatre,
La.
The not dead member.
Really? In my yard, consul.
So the Heart Sutra mantra, I think probably most of you know, and so that is Tadyata Gade Gade Para Gade Para Sam Gade Bodhi Swaha. So that's the Heart Sutra mantra.
That Jormuji Chengate Karze.
Changade Paragi.
Changam on Guru Bejadara.
Some of the Gedisha, some of
the.
So then there is the name mantra of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and Vajadara Sumada Kiti Shatana Dara Samudara Shirvata Savasiti Ho. So that's his name mantra. And then there is Om Vajra Guru Padma Siddhi Home.
Oh yeah.
That is Guru Rinpoche's name mantra.
That, oh yeah. That is any Chirazo, I did knowledge of issues.
So I would advise you to recite these mantras at home.
아니 저런저 나라전데 초디잖니 아니 자 가르세다 락바다 간주 때 최해디잖니 아니 간주 때는 게 있어.
And those who attend like Wednesday evening teaching or like that, we will also try to recite these mantras at the teaching as well.
Oh yeah. 나오나 알이 단다 전주시에서 뭐 가르세티.
No.
잘봐.
세대분이 이제 never 치도게.
예, 샤동고를 저거 또
제동게 봐서 상계동 강남관대 deluded 뭐 정말에서는 차제로만의 배명원의 빠이좀 그래 나랑 저 진심이 그 저라 때니 산지 때문에 뭐 저기로 내봐 저 이거는 그 저기 땡지 버터만서 그게 개배 때문에 저기 넣었다 매매로 용왔다 아니 최병기제 쇼포만은 이제 준비 샤워는 있었는데 못 봤다 이게 이제 감도다 이게도 저기도 저기다 괜히 tun중서 매매로 용왔다. Let us dedicate our merit for the flourishing of Dharma, the source of benefits and happiness throughout the universe. May His Holiness the Dalai Lama and all other great masters and holy beings live long and be successful in fulfilling their visions benefiting sentient beings. May spiritual communities throughout the world and spiritual practitioners from all traditions remain healthy, harmonious, and be successful in fulfilling their spiritual aspirations. May these and other world environments be free of all kinds of unwanted pains and problems, and beings find peace, happiness, prosperity, and spirituality. In short, we dedicate our collective merit for all kind mother sentient beings to be free from the fears and dangers of two types of mental obscuration, and may we all reach complete enlightened state quickly. Tenzin So I recited the mantra quickly because you got the handouts.
Oh, yes, sir.